and welcome back to the Dicebreaker Podcast. It's episode 53. I don't know what the bingo call is for 53, but I imagine it's incredibly exciting, but nowhere near as exciting as something that rhymes with 53. It's Jeremy. Hello, Jeremy Gage. How are you doing? Welcome to the Dicebreaker Podcast.
Hello, thank you. I'm doing well. I am excited to be here in a lot of different ways.
Jeremy, it's about 9 a.m. over there, right? So everyone can excuse a slightly sleepiness vibe from you, or maybe some birdsong in the background. Yeah. But more importantly, quickly, I mean, I should say, of course, we are also joined by the ineffable Alex Meehan.
Yeah,
hello, Alex Meehan. How are you
I'm
doing?
in the corner. I'm sat on a plastic stool in the corner. Yeah.
You're on the kids' table.
Yeah.
But yeah, give us a little chance here for Jeremy to talk about. Jeremy, who are you? Where are you from? What kind of stuff do you do? Where can people find you? Tell us about yourself, my friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Gage. I am the host of the Draw Your Dice podcast. You can find it on your favorite distributors. You can find me at Jeremy Gage 5 over on Twitter. I am stationed in the States over in the greater Cleveland area of Ohio. So shout out to all Ohioans who may or may not be watching or listening to this show. And I'm also on the Tabletop Call-In show. That's twitch.tv/Adam E. Bell. Adam is an excellent co-host and really carries the show. So come get your questions answered. I guess I have questions here today that I'll answer, but if you have more, please come to the show.
This is going to be a strange one for you because you're used to asking other people questions, but we're going to be throwing questions your way. So we'll see how you stand up to the
I think this is literally my first, I think this is the first time I've been interviewed on another podcast in a really long time. So
I've nothing but respect and confidence in your ability. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Thank you.
For anyone not watching but listening at home, a very, very confident face there for Jeremy as well. So we'll kick things off as we usually do with just a little intro and what we've been playing at the moment as a team. Jeremy, we'll start with you as our esteemed guest. Like, what games have you been playing recently? Tell us about them. Tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, most regularly I play a game called Lighthearted by Kurt Potts. Mm-hmm. It is a fantasy magic school world set in the late 80s, 1987 to be specific. So everyone wields the power of neon to lesser or greater effect depending on what grade you're in. And it's kind of taking from classic 80s, coming of age stories. So I think about stuff like The Breakfast Club and even some musical things like Grease and Footloose. Mm-hmm. And combines that with sort of separated from its creator, but sort of the magical school, maybe little bit of Harry Potter vibe, but also maybe inspired by animes as well, some magical school animes. And yeah, that's about that one. I play it pretty much every Monday. It's been a great time. I just started playing it. I love the mechanics. You basically operate with this spectrum band of emotions. So every scene you start in a particular emotion related to a color of the rainbow. And, as I engage in different conflicts, that spectrum will move over and increase or decrease the effectiveness of particular emotions for me. So, for example, if I'm feeling particularly calm and peaceful, I'm resting inside of the green spectrum. And when I engage in conflict that might have me feeling detached or cold or icy, such as violet, my spectrum will move over one, and that determines the die size that's used for that spectrum. So really neat game by Kurt and Kate Potts. I highly recommend it. And then I played 2 games over a cabin trip with a couple of friends. Mm-hmm. One is called Selfish. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that on the show.
Not the slightest,
but it's the version I played is a space version, and it has, you set out astronaut cards and time markers. You have 7 turns or something like mm-hmm. that. And in your hand, you have oxygens. The object of the game is to get back to the space shuttle because you've all been jettisoned for whatever reason. And it's a competitive game, so you are trying to get there first
By
while your
punching other
oxygen is
people
in
the
place.
nads, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. So you're like floating around free in space, and you have like little tasers and stuff and rocket boosts, and you have cards that like steal oxygen from other players. It creates an interesting atmosphere for the game for sure. It's like, oh shoot, I'm killing you. Oh no.
So it's like
But-
Gravity, but you're
Yeah.
you're not trying to save each other. You're trying to kill each other.
Yeah. And then the last one that I recently played was Epic Spell Wars of Battle Wizards.
Oh, I love that
Yeah.
game. Epic
Such a-
Battle of the Spell Wizards on
Yeah.
Mount Skullfire or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so
It's
good.
so dumb. I love it.
I was I love the combining of spells and the sort of like at first, like when I first started playing, it's hard to like figure out the left right thing or like across from you or a random player or whatever. But after you sort of get the hang of like targeting left and right players, the game takes on a whole new like meta lifestyle. And you are just, let's just say Jeremy likes to be competitive. That's all.
Have you played Epic Battle? I can't remember what the hell the real
Epic-
title is.
It's a very long name.
Yeah, Epic
Epic
Spell
Spell Wars.
Battle Mountain Wars. Yeah.
Wizard War.
I've heard of it. I think I might have played it eons ago or something. It rings a bell. I know roughly the concept of it and kind of what it looks like. It's got a very cartoon like comic.
Yeah, it's got like a sort of like it's almost like it reminds me of like heavy metal mixed with Adventure Time kind of like art style to it. Like it's super super like sort of cartoony, but like in a fun sort of like bombastic, explodey way. There's about 8 different testicle spells as well, which is like
Wow,
gives you an
Will.
idea of the tone.
You're making this
It's called Testikill.
Testikill, sorry.
You're making this a very testicular podcast, I have to say.
I did say nads earlier. I'm sorry. I promise
that's the theme.
It's not usually this testicular here on the Dicebreaker Podcast, Jeremy. But yeah, no, I love that game. I love how the spell system works because you basically get like you kind of have like the spectrum of a spell, and then you'll have cards that will either sit on the left, the middle, or the right. So you kind of have to like combine them into this like really long sort of like picture card almost that combines them all into different effects. It's really, really, it's goofy. It's really goofy fun. Like it's not the kind of thing that you'd like take very seriously, I don't think. But like that's kind of one of its charms. Like it's just kind of you're just kind of making dumb spells and murdering each other with them, which is really good.
Yeah. Awesome.
So yeah, that's been about the games I've played recently, and I'm also playing in a D&D 5e game. But to shout out the podcast, we're playing Domain of the Nameless God, which is by the Dark Dice podcast, which I think is one of the best D&D actual play podcasts I've ever listened to. It's sort of like audio drama meets an actual play, which is really, really cool. Horror style, and the creators have made a supplement adventure that we are playing through, and it's very good.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't think I've ever listened to an actual play. Like, I think it's just because I don't have much time for podcasts. But yeah, like, because I know you listen to Critical Role, right, Meehan?
Yeah, I'm one of those basic bitches.
With your pumpkin spice latte.
I am a critter, one might say.
Yeah, I listened to that, and I used to listen to Adventure Zone for a bit. And to be honest, I need to branch out some more. I'm one of those people who finds it very difficult to try something new, particularly actual play podcasts, because I feel they can be really good or they can be really quite bad. But I think I've heard of this actual play that you mentioned, Jeremy. I've seen it like pop up on the old Twitter feed.
The old Twitter.com.
The old Twitter.com.
Hit me up.
And there's a gentleman on that. I can't remember what his name is, but he's been on like Critical Role playthroughs they've done before. Yeah, he's got a very imposing sort of presence, but I can't remember what his name is. But this is fascinating to listen to. This is like a conversation with my mum. Yeah.
Oh, who was that nice young man?
No, I think I definitely would give it a listen with your recommendation, because I have time for culture.
As opposed to Wheels, who does not.
No, I'm entirely cultureless. So yeah.
You just watch your cartoons and eat your what's-its, don't you?
Yeah, I've got no cultures. Whereas Meehan is like a fine yogurt, just full of cultures.
Oh yeah, I'm an onken, definitely.
Yeah, if it matters, Dark Dice is only like anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes, depending on the episode.
Oh, wow,
that's a lot shorter than Critical Role, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh god, is it Dave Walters? Is that his name?
Dave Walters.
I know the name. Dave Walters.
Is
We're all gonna frantically Google
no.
Dave Walters.
Now look what I've done.
Excuse us.
Be Dave Walters. No, yeah. LA by Night, Dave Walters?
Yes, that's where I know them from.
DM for the Black Dice Society.
There you go.
There it is.
It came to me eventually. I knew them from.
Shout out to Dave Walters. Thank you very much.
LA by Night.
I hope you're listening, Dave.
Yeah. I used to watch LA by Night for a bit, which is a Vampire the Masquerade actual play, because I really got obsessed with the game for a bit, and then I was like, where is good content for this? So, yeah, burn there. Yeah, there you go. I've derailed this enough.
Oh, it's
Wheels,
kind
take
of,
control.
It's kind of just how we do this podcast, though, isn't it? It's basically what we do every week to see how far we can derail it. Just literally
I love it.
On the other side of the planet from the train tracks. But yeah, no. So, well, Meehan, what have you been playing this week? Let us know about the sweet hot tabletop action you've been getting involved with.
Oh, Wheels. The action is very slow. I don't know what it is. Some weeks I'm playing non-stop, really busy. Other weeks it's real quiet. So this week I played some Backgammon. Woo!
Now hold up. I love Backgammon. Backgammon's really good.
The game all the kids are playing.
It's hot, fresh new designs just come out.
Yeah, I've heard.
Did you know that Backgammon is like super popular with like investment bankers?
No,
because they gamble with it.
Yeah, no. The thing is, this Backgammon set I have, which was given to me by my parents, it smells as old as it looks. It's
Has it got the double or nothing die?
It's yeah, it does. It's got like the double or nothing, and it's got like a little rule book that comes with it, and it says in there like the gambling rules. And I was like, if I had money.
It's kind of like
Dang it.
It's kind of like playing a poker hand where it's like, you know, you've got you've got like a thing that you can both technically be good at, but it's all based on odds. And then as the game progresses, you're kind of like upping the ante as you're like, no, I reckon I'm actually doing pretty well, so I'm happy to double the bet, and then it sort of keeps going back and forth.
The thing is, I think that's even stupider than poker gambling, because Backgammon is it's a game that's so based on luck that I just think if you're betting money on it, it is about the same level as a roulette. Like, at least with...
I'd say it's higher than roulette.
I don't know though,
you've still got strategic decisions to make. Like, so if anyone's watching and they don't know the rules to Backgammon, Meehan, how do you play Backgammon? Like Jeremy, for example. There we go.
No idea.
Okay, Jeremy, let me take you back to a time we're traveling back to ye olde England.
It's like what, the 1700s.
Yeah.
You've got a powdered wig and a corset.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we both have powdered wigs and corsets on. So I'm sitting you down with the Backgammon. It's a game where it's 2 players, where each player have like their own set of counters. And the board is very odd. It's like there's 2 sides to it. So a side to each where each player is facing, and then you've got these lines sort of spread out across it, and then the aim of the game is to get all your counters like in your side of the board. So the board is kind of split into 4 almost, and your counters will travel a certain direction around the board to get to your side, like your little corner. So you take turns to roll 2 dice. And then you choose to use those dice to move your counters along the lines in the direction towards your sort of corner. And so, like, the dice can refer to 2 different counters. So if you rolled a 3 and a 4, you could use the 3 on one and the 4 on another. Or you could use the dice for the same counter if you wanted to move it further. So you move it, like, along these lines. And then the other player is trying to do exactly the same. And it's basically whoever managed to get all their counters in their corner. And then, this is the really luck-based part, where you...
Meehan language?
Yeah, I'm saying it!
I'm going to have to beat that now.
My language has been terrible this episode. Apologies.
Testicular?
Yeah. Honestly, I forgot we couldn't swear for a bit.
So... Sorry, Jerry, we should have told you that as well, actually. But
I'm fine.
You've been very
not as
well
much as a
behaved.
potty mouth as Alex Meehan. So.
Yeah, you have to roll your dice, and then the numbers will correspond to the lines in your corner. So if you roll a 3, the line, third line along, you'll be able to take a counter from that, put it in your little home base. But you can't stop doing that until you have all your counters in your corner. So it does have strategy to it in terms of which counters you choose to move, and when you choose to use your dice. But then by the time it gets to the end, it's very luck based. And I don't know. I guess I'm just salty because I had some games where.
So here's the thing, and I think and I don't know if this is because you haven't been playing with the rule or if you've like just sort of missed talking about it. But there's one thing that makes Backgammon like a really competitive game, and that's you can capture each other's pieces. So like whilst you're imagine this board is kind of like a U shape, right? And each team is starting on either end of it, and the goal is to get to the other side of the U shape. But as you go along those paths, if you ever find a single piece that's on a space on its own, you can put a piece above it and capture it, and it will get locked back at the start of the course. You can only get that piece off by rolling a number to get it into an empty space. But if you filled up the section where it needs to get into, it's really, really hard to get that piece back.
Yeah.
So you end up actually losing turns based on that. So it's kind of like a position of like how safe can you keep your pieces as you're moving them along, not just how quickly. Because if you go a little bit too aggressive,
you can leave
your
your counters exposed, and
exactly,
captured. But basically, it's a very hard game to explain through audio means.
It's super abstract.
No, I'm tracking. I'm here for it.
Because it's super abstract.
Yeah, Google Backgammon, and then you'll see what the board looks like. It might give you a bit more of an idea.
It's a classic. I like it. And you can find it on like a billion places to play it online as well. It's like one of those classic like chess,
it's a parlor game, right?
Backgammon.
Like
it's a parlor game.
It's super old fashioned.
Yeah,
but it's really good fun.
It's good. Yeah. So I played some of that, and I also played more Quacks of Quedlinburg because it seems that this is a new hot game in our group.
It's all the rage.
Yeah.
Meehan's really up on the beat, like up with the times, you know.
I'm very hip.
The kids.
One might say.
Hello, fellow children.
Yeah. Definitely. No, have you played Quacks, Jeremy?
No, never.
It's become a bit of a household name in the Dicebreaker group, as it were.
Ooh.
Lowlies is in love with that game. It's Quacks of Quedlinburg is like it's a bag building game, but there's a huge amount of luck involved in it. So you have all these ingredients, and some of the ingredients, they're cherry bombs. Lowlies call them snowdrops. I call them
dingleberries.
You call them dingleberries. They serve the same function. And you have this pot, and you have to put ingredients into it, and the ingredients are on this track that are like that's in the pot, and the further along the track you get, the more rewards you get. But the cherry bombs, if you place so each of the cherry bombs is worth a certain amount of points, let's say, and if you reach above 7 a total of cherry bombs points, then your pot explodes and you... Yeah, it's quite dramatic. And you sort of you have a sort of sacrifice because of that. And as you go along the game, you can buy more ingredients for you to randomly draw into your pot each turn. And it basically it changes like the chances of, am I going to pick up a cherry bomb or am I going to put, something different? And the ingredients do different abilities as well that can help you get further along that track and get more victory points and money you can spend on ingredients. So it's like it's a good mixture of strategy and luck. Whether you choose, I'm gonna take out the bag one last time and hopefully it won't be a cherry bomb and explode my pot. But the mod we play, if you explode, you can like click a button and smoke comes out of the pot.
It's very exciting.
I was just listening to the last episode about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's what's technology?
Tabletop sim modders are getting pretty adept, to be fair. Like shout out to all the tabletop modders, sim modders on Steam.
Parentheses, buy games where you can.
Yeah.
But no, the mod is impressive. But
Quacks is great. Quacks is a really
good.
fun push in that game.
I think I've got my friend group hooked, which is bad for Mr. Jarvis because he doesn't like that game that much. So
Matt Jarvis doesn't like Quacks.
Well, he likes it well enough. I think he just thinks that people think it's better than it is. So you know what he's like with his hot takes.
Interesting. He does have some pretty hot takes. Speaking of hot takes, if you're finished, Meehan.
Yeah, I'm done.
Which I can see from the Google Doc. I have been playing Magic the Gathering Arena. In fact, I played it over lunch and the game overrun. So I was just like, sorry, I'm conceding. I promise.
It was very unprofessional. I had to apologise to Jeremy.
Look, I am
totally chill.
I need a break at some point. I'm a busy boy. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Magic the Gathering Arena. I think we're going to be talking a little bit about it later because we've got Strixhaven news coming up.
Yep.
But yeah, so I've been playing with the new sets. I started trying draft mode as well, which is is
that where the big boys play, or
it's gambling, Meehan. Like it's genuinely, it's pretty shady. Like so I did this like event for Strixhaven where we got like a little preview of some of the cards and some of the lore behind it and stuff, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with the news article. But it came with loads of like free gems for Arena because like press events and stuff. They're like, go play the game. It's like, okay, cool. So I tried. I was like, I've never tried drafting because I don't really spend much money in free to play games. I'm frugal when it comes to free to play games. So I tried a draft mode out. But the way draft works is you basically you're drafting cards, right? So you draft a deck. You get kind of random selections and then you try and build the best deck you can. And then you see how far you can go with that deck, which is quite a fun format. So I think you get to like keep the cards that you draft as long as you're doing a certain thing. So you get a kind of like quote unquote monetary value out of it. But the way that it works is you have a sort of track of wins. And for every win that you get, you increase the rewards that you get after you're finished. So if you win one time, you might get a pack of cards and 50 gems. You win two times, you might get 100 gems instead, and then it goes up and up and up. And then basically if you lose 3 times, you quit. So whatever you ended up at, that's your reward. And then you have to pay for entry to the draft again. But this is the thing. So you like gems are the in-game currency, right? That you have to buy with real money. So you purchase a pass to go in, which costs gems, and then you win incrementally more gems as you go. But you only make your money back after like 8 wins. So it very much feels like gambling to me. Like it's like I reckon I can win 8 times, and if I do, I get all my money back. And it's like, this feels wrong.
Going down a dark path, Wills. I'm worried for you.
Well, I don't pay any money, so it's fine.
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
It is a slippery slope. I was talking to Chase, who's our sort of like part-time news reporter, who is very, very good. And he was literally like coaching me through the drafts and stuff. He was like, okay, like do this. And I was like, Chase, I just lost 3 in a row. And he's like, just quit there, Wheels. Like don't get sucked in because you'll have a bad day if you do. But yeah, also I think if you play blue in Magic, then you're a Tory. But so anyway, right, moving on.
Wow, more hot takes. Okay, carry on.
Moving on, I've also played. We need to get a jingle for this. My updates from Arkham Horror.
Yeah, Arkham Horror. Woo!
I've been playing Arkham Horror LCG. We finally. So, Jeremy, you said you listened to the last episode, did you?
Yeah, I listened about up to the halfway point before I fell asleep in bed. Nighttime is my podcast.
By the way, it was
listening
3
time.
p.m.
Yeah.
That's how boring your podcast is.
Oh my God! Don't do this to me.
Yeah, so I've been playing Arkham Horror: The Living Card Game with my partner. So last time, like our last run of plays, we got on the Essex County Express because we were trying to make it to Dunwich, which is like the sort of central area of the campaign, and we got absolutely annihilated. So we went back to the start of the scenario because we've been giving ourselves like one retry for each one, and we actually managed to smash it. So we've gone through the train. We exploded someone with some dynamite. It was fantastic. My character was an absolute MVP, and now we've arrived at Dunwich and we're ready to get things kicking off. And I've looked at the next pack, like the next blister pack with the next scenario, and it looks pretty dangerous. So tune in next time to find out what happens to our characters. But speaking of Arkham Horror, me and Lodi's also played the digital like video game adaptation of Arkham Horror, which plays nothing like Arkham Horror. But it's more like Mansions of Madness that Matt Jarvis was also talking about last week. Mother's Embrace, which we've got a Let's Play of coming up on the channel. It's pretty jank.
Come on, tell me, Wills. Like,
well, so like as Matt said,
Yeah.
it's got some pretty bad voice acting to sort of start things off. But one of our favorite things was like, so like the intro scenario is the narrator is this like professor lady, and she's invited you to her home. So we were playing as Jim Culver, who's like a sort of haunted jazz musician. He's very cool. But he's got like a sort of very sort of like young boy kind of like vibe. Like he's like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. So you arrive at this house and you ring the doorbell and no one answers. And immediately he's like, I guess we'll break the window and climb in. It's like, what are you doing? So then you break the window and get in the house and you find like a broken vase. And you hear a shout upstairs and you're like, oh no, she must be in trouble. It's like, well, I hope you thought that to begin with because you just broke into her home. Like, she might be shouting because you broke the window. And then you get up and like, the twist is the narrator's actually dead. Although she's still narrating, which is really weird. But I mean, it's not that big of a twist because it's like 5 minutes into the game. But my favorite thing is you go through this campaign and we did like 2 or 3 missions. And everyone's like, sort of like, you know, they're fighting the people that are turning up. They're cultists, right? So they've got like these big brown robes. You find the character and she's like dead and she's got like a like cult symbol behind her drawn in blood. Like, it's a cult. It's very clearly a cult. And they keep calling them burglars. And it's like, oh, come on, lads.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's more of those burglars. They're not stealing.
You're not fooling anyone with that. No.
It's like a bad 90s mystery. Like, we get it. We see who's here.
Who could it have been? Do you think it's that guy who's holding the bloody knife that's been standing around in the background for the entire episode? But yeah, no, it's just like the characters are just so stupid. But yeah, that's been my favorite thing of Arkham Horror Mother's Embrace. But that's what I've been playing this week. That was pretty concise, to be honest. We usually go on a lot of rambles.
We're like an old couple. We're constantly going on rambles.
Aww.
But now we move on to the news.
Yeah.
So all of these stories available on Dicebreaker.com, written by fantastic people like me and like Chase and like Matt. This is kind of like a couple of the sort of, you know, just cherry-picked bits of info that will be coming out. Some of the hot stories that we think are going to be interesting to chat about. And the first one is a little sort of problem with the upcoming, as we alluded to, the upcoming Magic the Gathering expansion. Is that what you call it? Set?
New set.
Set expansion?
Set expansion.
Right.
Expert expansion?
Strixhaven.
Yeah.
Strixhaven is the sort of like magic school kind of vibe scenario. A little bit pottery, a little bit sort of whatever other magic schools there are. I'm trying to think of one.
Yeah.
It's very pottery. Like they've got like a sort of Quidditch clone and all that kind of stuff, and houses, and you can like go in your house and all that kind of stuff. But Meehan, I'll let you talk about this because I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But it looks like there's been some problems with the shipping.
There's so much hoo-ha at the moment around.
Oh God, hoo-ha.
Yeah.
Not hoo-ha.
To be honest, magic often runs into hoo-ha, but this latest set, the Strixhaven, it seems to have been running into problem after problem, and the newest one is there seems to be some issues around the shipment. So there's going to be some shipment delays. We don't know how much that's linked to COVID or maybe even the Evergreen.
Evergiven, yeah.
Yeah, that giant ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal.
Help me!
Yeah.
It was very funny.
Wizards of the Coast who make magic have not been liable to stay. But it seems there are delays, and a pre-release will now be combined with the release date of April 23rd. And for countries like Thailand, the bundles were apparently released in May. So there's been some delays. Apparently there've been some production issues around the Japanese language set boosters, which means there'll be some shortages. Essentially, this all comes off the back of other sort of controversies around the new set, particularly with the artwork. So this was a story we were talking about last week, where essentially one of the artists, Jason Felix, had been accused of essentially stealing art or fan art from another artist and using it for one of the upcoming cards, Crux of Fate. They've actually responded to the accusations, basically admitting, it seems, that they did do this. They said, I wanted to make a public response, and they said, I was overworked, but that's no excuse. I've messed up and I'm trying to make amends. So yeah,
Ouch.
Is anyone else buying this? Hello? Are you just mad that you got caught?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It says he wanted to reach out to the affected artists and Wizards of the Coast first, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Artists? It's more than one?
Well, because you've got Kit LaPena, who was the I think the fan artist who made the art, but then you've also got like the people that he was working with, like the art director and stuff like that, and then Wizards of the Coast. So there's like, this is the thing. There were a lot of
people involved,
invested parties.
Yeah.
Like, it was quite a big deal.
Yeah,
but it's a bit short, isn't it? I don't know if that's like just a snippet of the statement. But...
Yeah, this is Chase has written this story, and this is what they found in regards to a response to the accusation. I mean, Wizards, as we said last week, were straight away with like shutting it down and saying, okay,
in fairness,
we're not going to release this card because it's got stolen artwork on it. And now Felix has replied to that. It just seems like Strixhaven is going for, through over speed bump and speed bump on the way to release. It's not a great look, but there's some things you can't control, I guess. COVID, I think, is causing a lot of issues with shipments. Yeah.
It seems like even more excuse for people to just play Arena. But this is the thing, though. Like I've been enjoying Arena, and as much as there are some bits about Magic that I really don't like it is at its heart like a pretty solid card game. But I just imagine even the deck that I'm playing now, like trying to physically play that would be such a nightmare. Like trying to count all of the like counters that are on everything and trying to keep up with all of the like numerical stuff that's happening and all the ridiculous edge cases and stuff. It's such a complicated game, and like it baffles me that people still play physically. I'm glad they do, because obviously we're a tabletop site, but yeah, I don't think I could do it, honestly. Not competitively anyway.
Yeah,
the cognitive load is certainly intense for that game. I'm a pretty like, I love card games. I've played a lot of Legends of Runeterra and Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger. So like, I know exactly what you're feeling. I'm like, okay, we have to go back to the errata, double check, target all spells, but hexproof. Hello? Is there a referee here?
It's also just the thing that like Magic's been around for so long. Like sometimes you'll play against someone and they'll bring out a card and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, what does this mean? Like, and at the very least you can like hover over it and it'll give you a clue. Like I remember the first time someone brought a Planeswalker out against me, I was like, how does this work? I don't know what this is. I can't, there's no tooltip. I don't know what's going on. What are all these big numbers?
Yeah, I think the summary from that is Strixhaven. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll see. Which is a shame. Like there's some cool stuff that seems to be coming out of it. Like I will say that each of the sets, they do seem to get quite creative, like with the new rules and stuff that they put in there. So they've got like these kind of lesson cards, which is the new thing, I think, where it's a sort of like sideboard of things that can just sort of stay out of play, and then you learn a lesson and then you just get to pick one of them to grab in. So it's kind of like a sort of like backup, like it's like your substitutes or something, like from what I can see from like the card effects that we've seen so far, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's more content for the content grinder. So
more reasons for us to sit here and sort of chortle out. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to our next story, Wheels?
Well, yeah, it looks like there's a new addition to the series of Chronicles of Crime. Meehan.
Yeah, this is quite an interesting one. Again, this is Chase. Shout out to Chase. Yeah, this is a weird, like a crossover between two quite popular series. So the Chronicles of Crime series, which comes from Lucky Duck Games, which is like it's a bit like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, from what I know. It's like a co-op mystery discovery game that people seem to be quite fond of, but I think it's got quite a lot of AR and sort of app-based elements.
Yeah, so I think the main sort of like gimmick that they have is that you scan QR codes on the cards that you draw, and then the app will give you different info based on the like the context that you're scanning in, kind of thing. So like one character will actually serve 8 different things based on when you scan them and all that kind of stuff, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Whereas the game it's combining with it's called Chronicles of Crime: The Mystery of
Teotihuacan?
Yeah, you can say it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say it, but I'm giving it my all. Yeah. I'll Google it. I don't know if there's a pronunciation.
Apologies.
Teotihuacan.
Sorry, Jeremy.
No, I said Teotihuacan.
Yeah. Apologies to anyone if we've ballsed it up. Yeah, so it's...
More balls. It's Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
So actually, Jeremy was pretty close, to be fair.
Congrats, Jeremy. Your prize is coming in the post.
Oh, the dab. There it is.
Yeah, so this is combining with a game called Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, which was unfortunately designed by a not very nice person. Yes. Danielle
Tashini?
Meehan's
given up on all pronunciations.
What a powerful set of news articles.
Who designed the original and has had...
Oh, God, it's this guy.
Yeah, Board and Dice cut ties with them because they're racist. Yeah, we don't know if they have any involvement in this upcoming game. Hopefully not, considering that the publisher cut ties with them. So this is like a combination of those two games, and it seemed to be set in Mexico itself, where investigators have to roll dice and solve mysteries by scanning them with the companion app. So it's like a combination of dice rolling and the companion app stuff from the Chronicles of Crime.
Yeah, so like from the picture that's sort of like provided on the article, like it almost looks like you combine the 4 dice to make a QR code, which is kind of a cool gimmick.
Yeah,
like
That's
like
very,
the pips
yeah.
on the die combine and create like a little QR code, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that doesn't really bring me past the thing that is it's been based on a design by a exposed racist designer, so that's kind of an issue for me. It's also like, you know, like Daniel Tascini is Italian and white from what I understand, and this is very much like a like, you know, ancient Mexican culture story, and I don't really think that he's in a good place to be designing that stuff in the first place. So I would also question, you know, who else is working on this project, whether or not they've actually spoken to people that know a little bit more about that culture. So yeah, there's a few things that are making this a little bit of a red flag for me.
Yeah, again, there's no confirmation on how much the designer is involved in this version of the game, and there's no release date either. So information would be good.
I wonder if this kind of was already in the works before everything kicks off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because these kind of games, they're
take months, even years
definitely.
sometimes, right?
Probably years. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
You'd think that they would maybe just stop making games for that particular series, but apparently the
money.
It still has more.
Money.
Yeah, there's the sum
more
up.
to
Yeah,
offer.
there it is.
I'll say it. Capitalism. Let's go. Play the game. Question for both of you on this, in terms on the electronic side of things, because I'm not an avid board game player yet. I'm working on it. But what do you think about the evolution of sort of augmented reality or virtual? Because you mentioned the Arkham Horror digital version, and now this AR version sort of peeked up in this episode. What do you think about electronic digital board game applications, advances, I guess?
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit, I think. It's like, so board games are definitely sort of like, as a whole, leaning towards that kind of like app-based, or at least like, you know, assisted sort of like mindset, where it kind of, it gives you a little bit more onus to not only add new content for the game, but also allows you to take some of the like bookkeeping out of the hands of the players, which can make things a little bit more fun. But I definitely think it depends on the execution a lot of the time. Like there's, like, for example, what Matt Jarvis's favorite game, Manchester Madness, which is what the Arkham game that we played on, it felt like it was based on, is not something I really enjoy, because it's so app heavy that it's just like, it feels like we're just kind of moving miniatures around for the sake of it, rather than actually, you know, it's like, okay, well, what's the purpose of having a board game attached to this app if it's like the main element of the game? Whereas like things like this, where it's, you know, you're drawing cards and you're working out puzzles, but then you might like spot a QR code, and especially with like the Unlock series, which is like a sort of digital escape room board game box thing. You get a lot of the newer sort of like more modern versions have these kind of like AR features, but they won't tell you when to use the AR. So you have to kind of work it out yourself, right? So it's like you'll spot a card and you're like, hold on a second, and then you know you're like, hold on, what happens if we scan this card? And you're like, oh, okay, there's another element and stuff like that, where it feels a bit more like, you know, it's not just now open the app, now press this button in the app, now move a piece, and it's like, yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, I think that I mean I'll throw it over to Meehan, but like I feel like it's very much like a sort of mix of meh and for me.
I'm a lot more positive about it. I think that if it's implemented in a really good way, I am totally happy with companion apps, even interested in what they can do. So so like I think Matt's also been playing Forgotten Waters, which has a companion app that works in a kind of similar way to Mansions, but it's more telling the story of the game. So you can respond to, here's a scenario, like what are you going to do, and then you give a response and it's like, oh, this has happened, and the kind of the book that they use is there for them to have a physical space to move around and interact with alongside this story app. But like the great thing about that is the fact that you can play it remotely with other people, like the actual physical board game, using the app, which I think is awesome, because at the moment it's very difficult to get larger groups together to play with. Exactly. So the fact that you can get one copy and use that one copy to play with all these people remotely, I think that's an excellent way of using digital integration with a board game, because it's just like helping you play the game with other people. With Mansions, it might be the case of the app replaced the game master position. So originally there used to be a GM who would do all of that stuff anyway. So the app kind of replaces that. So it might be more of a fault with the game itself rather than the app, because the app is just replacing a role that was previously there. Because all that person would do would just respond to what was ever written in the book and move stuff for you. So I do think I am in favor of apps for the most part. I think they can make things a lot easier. They can connect you with other people, and they can even just do fun, silly things like One Night Ultimate Werewolf, where it's like you can just select what characters you've got included in the game, and then the narration will again replace the GM role, so therefore everyone can play instead of having one person having to do the call out every night. And it's always worked whenever we've used it. So
same.
Yeah, I think it's great. So
yeah. I think there's definitely like a sort of like problem to be solved, which apps can definitely come into.
As long as it doesn't replace the tabletop experience, like
sure.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, it sounds like based on this 2-person sample size I have here,
which is about as much as you need for a proper examination of it, I think.
But it sounds like there's this. It's like it's just starting. It feels like from what you're saying, it's sort of like the electronic or digital application towards board games just starting, and some of them are doing it in a way that's just very like, the kids are using apps, let's just add an app. And like that's not proper execution. And there's some who have thought about the execution as a piece of the game and to supplement maybe cognitive load, or to supplement or create new styles of interactions for that interactive gameplay, right?
Yeah,
so
I know.
Very cool.
I know that the detective series that Johnny likes quite a lot, the Detective and Modern Crime board game series, I think that has some app elements that sound quite fun. I think a lot of those mystery type games do have. I
do think that apps in mystery games is like a really good combo,
it
because
helps
it basically
it helps immerse you, I think, with
but it also it takes the limit off of. So for example, I've been playing Micro Macro recently that we talked about on the last podcast, which is like a detective-y kind of like searching around a map game, and basically like one person in that game has to see the answer to the question. So they like, if the other person gets it wrong, it means that one person now can't guess anymore because they've been told the answer. So you do remove that thing of like taking people out of the experience to facilitate getting the correct like way through things. So there's definitely a massive space for it in sort of mystery games. Unlocked does the same thing, where it's just like, if you think you've worked out a clue, you just put like whatever it is, the code in the app or something. It'll just tell you if you're right or wrong. It doesn't sort of like replace the game experience. You're still shuffling through cards and looking at things and all that kind of stuff. It's just like you said, Meehan, it's like a virtual GM kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think there is a certain amount of snobbery around board games with apps, because I think there are some people in the community who are like, oh, it's like it needs to be entirely physically tabletop, otherwise it's not a proper. It's not a proper game experience, or it's for like kids, or it's too gimmicky or something. Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, if it makes it more accessible to people, then I don't see what the problem here is. Like, you don't have to play it. Like, you can play original Mansions of Madness if you want. Like, no one's going to stop you from doing that, I suppose.
Go away and leave
it
us
still
alone.
exists. It doesn't burn up the second an app is created.
Yeah. Go on ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was going to say that was going to be my follow-up, like sort of my sub before getting to the next article, is just like, do you feel like you're a traditional style board gamer, like let's not delve too far into digital, or are you excited for the digital? That was gonna be, but you pretty much answered that. So
yeah, I think as long as it doesn't lean too much in it's a gimmick, then I think it's a really good step forward, because like not everyone is doing it. It's still like a fairly fresh thing. I don't think everyone will do it, because I think there's still a lot of designers who prefer not to make those kind of games. It's not like the whole medium is going to be taken over by apps or anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it significantly increases the production costs as well, right?
Yeah.
Because suddenly you need to have a programmer on staff, visual artists to work on it, all that kind of stuff. So like it does... It is a much more expensive way of producing a board game. It's why you see mostly like the big companies doing it, like Fantasy Flight and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't think board games that don't need an app are going to sort of suddenly disappear or anything. So even if you are like a real traditionalist, which I don't know why you're listening to this podcast,
but thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for coming anyway. All right, well, next up we've got one that's been written by yourself, actually, Meehan.
Yeah.
You're kind of, I'm afraid you are sort of like bearing the weight of all the news, because I do not work on the website,
No.
so I don't know the hot news stories.
You have not walked the lands of the website.
Yeah, I don't hold up the sky like Atlas. But yeah, we've got Camel Up news.
Yeah,
which is one of your faves.
This is more.
Yeah,
this is
Yeah,
more
Camel Up.
positive news. Camel Up, everyone. It's time to talk about Camel Up. So Camel Up is a game that I think we all quite like. Have you played it, Jeremy?
Not at all. No. I've never heard of this.
It's a game about racing camels. So like you're betting on camel races.
Perfect.
Yeah, and you see the
It's the only game I need.
Yeah, it's genuinely, it's great. I would recommend Camel Up. Matt's mum is obsessed with it, apparently. So, yeah,
very sweet.
she loves Camel Up. But turns out there's going to be a spin-off game to the series, which is exciting because Camel Up is, as far as I know, on its own. I think there's a card game. But, yeah, this one is based on...
It's a real Camel Up cinematic universe.
Yeah, the CCU. I'm expanding. Because now we're going to find out the backstory behind what the camels do when they're not racing. I know you've all been asking.
You're going to see the dark history of all the camel racing in 8 eras past as well.
Yeah. So it turns out when the camels aren't racing, they're pulling caravans full of wonderful goods that people want to get a hold of. So in this game, you're bidding on markets. So it's like an auction game. So you have to, there are various markets with goods in them, and you have to, so I'm being really distracted because I'm looking at the news article, and we've got a fantastic new feature on the website, where videos will play automatically. So I've just got this trailer of Camel Up. Off season, it's called, playing underneath it, and it's very distracting.
Oh, there's some speedy camels.
Yeah, the camels are up to things. There's hijinks.
I will also say, if you're watching this on YouTube rather than listening on your favorite podcast app of choice, but I'll frame it the other way around. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on a fantastic camel impression from Jeremy in the background as well.
Well, I missed out on that. I was looking at the news.
Exactly.
I can't believe this. Regardless, you bid on the markets. If you win, you get to pick your market first. You get all the goods, and then you sell the goods. So that's the whole shebang. Apparently, it's due to come out in June. So if you like camels and bidding and yeah, Jerry's winking. I think that's a yes.
You like it when
for
Jeremy
you.
winks, then get on down to Camel Up off season.
That's a yes from Jeremy.
I will say that when I saw the title of this, especially after the conversation we just had, I thought it said Camel Up, off-season swaps the board games racist, and I was like, oh no, again?
No, Will.
The quick glance is like,
But
no,
it's
please
racing.
no.
It's racing. Oh,
It's
God,
racing.
thank God.
The camels are racing. Well, they're not in this one.
They're happily
They're
racing.
very happy.
Nobody's having a bad
No,
time.
don't worry about the camels. Just don't ask.
Anyways, get it.
Do we want to do this very quick last news piece?
Yeah, let's
Because I want to
whiz
see
through the
Jeremy's
last two.
reaction. This is the whole point of me putting this on. I just want to see what Jeremy thinks.
Okay, so penultimate story here. Lost Cities creator
No,
and Everdell
artist.
artist.
Not that one. We're just gonna skip.
We're skipping that one. Okay, well, a very, very, very quick. Lost Cities creator and Everdell artist team up for a co-op deck building game. So defend a fortress against invading forces in the Siege of Rundar, an upcoming game created by the Lost Cities designer Rainer Knizia.
It's Rainer Knizia. He's up to it.
It's his 1,572nd game with illustrated artist for Everdell, Andrew Bosley. So have a little look out for that. But finally, our biggest news story of the week.
I want to see what Jeremy thinks about this.
So, obviously,
I'm
Jeremy's
here for
seen the
it.
docs, so I feel like we're gonna spoil the surprise a little bit. But the docs that we use, like we just like put some little bullet points from each story, just to give like a little sort of like heads up for people reading. Oh, here's what we're going to be talking about. This last one has just got X's underneath. There's just no information
I
provided
see it.
because all
I'm
the
scared.
info you need is in the title. Here we go, Meehan. Over to you.
Yeah. I did this one obviously. The main correspondent of the hottest news. There is now an edition of Monopoly where you trade in Spongebob Squarepants memes. So yeah, Monopoly Spongebob Squarepants Meme Edition.
Not just SpongeBob edition, but SpongeBob
Yeah.
SquarePants Meme Edition.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I'm pretty sure there's already a SpongeBob edition probably of Monopoly. So this is the next step into hell. I don't know.
All I can think about is the coming NFT version of Monopoly now at this point.
God,
Is there real question, is there like a Monopoly Bitcoin version? Like it's just Bitcoin
surely,
themed?
right? Surely.
I wouldn't be
If there's
surprised.
There
something,
has to be.
if there's some really tasteless thing they can do for a quick buck, Monopoly has done
Yeah,
it.
oh
Like,
yeah. I've
honest,
seen it all.
I'm looking at the pictures of
Yeah.
this thing as well, and it looks so awful.
Yeah.
They've got like a tie-dye background as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, finding images for this was an experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's just memes in it. I can confirm handsome Squidward.
Yes.
So yeah. There you go, wonderful impression.
That was a whole sentence there. We can confirm handsome Squidward.
Yeah,
Handsome
he's
Squidward.
in there.
I can only imagine as well this has been created by people who are really hot on with it, and they
Yeah.
know all of the fresh meme culture, and it's not going to be really, really, really outdated and difficult to look at and play. I'm sure that won't be the case.
It seems like it's a stretch into like the apples to apples territory, or like Cards Against Humanity territory
Yeah.
too. It's like, oh, we're adding this cool new gimmick that makes it feel like another board game or card game at the same time.
Yeah.
Monopoly, the brand that steals.
The brand that steals. That's excellent. The thing is, it doesn't really seem to be any new mechanics. They've just replaced mechanics with.
Yeah, it's just you just get a meme instead of a property. It seems to be the only thing.
Pretty
like...
much, you pay likes instead of money. Yeah, I knew you'd take that.
Oh God.
It's coming.
Yeah.
The new Monopoly.
When I received
What?
the fun thing is, I received the press email from this, and then Matthew Jarvis forwarded me the press email he'd received on it. So not only did the Angels hearken the news once, they felt it prudent to tell me twice about this hot new game, and I just feel like in fact, someone commented on the story saying, "I really hope Meehan talks about this in the podcast." I feel like I've made a brand, and it's terrible.
Your reputation is preceding
Yeah,
you. I will say that, Jeremy, you were asking about an NFT Monopoly. This kind of is an NFT Monopoly game because it's a game in which they have falsely assumed that you can assign value to an image on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was
there
actually
you
just
go.
trying to see if there was like a Facebook edition of Monopoly, like trading likes instead of dollars.
I'm sure there's. If it
It's
makes
in the
you
works.
angry, they've probably done it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Or I've accidentally spoken it into the ether, and I'm sorry, everyone.
they probably listen to this podcast, me, and they're like gathering ideas from all the things that we like scoff at. They're like, oh yeah, no, that would work pretty well.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. That's money. That's money.
They've got a chart of my face, and it's like how how tired and exhausted do I look? And they're like, okay, where do we place this in the chart as to what reaction we think we're gonna get from her? Like, this one is definitely, I feel like, I'm doing my mum again. I feel like the character from Blade Runner who sits at the end, I've seen so much.
I've seen Monopoly games you people wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I've seen
Spongebob Meme Edition off the shoulders of Orion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, at the end of that speech, he says they'll all be lost, like Tears in the Rain, which I wish.
Yeah,
I wish, man.
Sorry, Rutger Hauer. Yeah, I am Rutger Hauer at the end of Blade Runner. I've seen... Yeah, and then I'll die.
When enough Monopoly has been birthed into the earth, that is the end of your time.
And a dove a single dove will fly off.
Well, before Meehan dies, let's do some quick questions from the audience. Yeah. And you might have seen, Jeremy, we put a little tweet out asking if anyone had some questions specifically.
Emails!
Emails.
I saw that.
If you've got a question that you want to ask us here on the Dicebreaker podcast, then you can either reach us on @JoinDicebreaker over on Twitter, or any number of other different social media.
Yeah, you can email us.
But mainly, mainly the email.
Yeah, podcast@dicebreaker.com.
So hit us up over there and let us know what you think. But our first question is from Twitter. It's from KeeganEXE, who I've seen on your Discord, actually, Jeremy.
Hi, Keegan.
And Keegan asks, #TryFoldsJam, inventor of RPGs, what are some trends that you see that you like, that you don't like, and would like to see just in general? That is the question from KeeganEXE, the inventor of RPGs. What are some trends that you like to see, don't like to see, and would like to see just in general?
I can vouch that Keegan has made the world's first role-playing game, so check out their work.
Check it on Wikipedia, it's true.
For reference, the world's first role-playing game, in the same vein that D&D 5th edition is the world's greatest role-playing game.
Let's see, trends I'm seeing. Talks about like the AR stuff with board games, digital ecosystems, what Multiverse is doing over in their neck of the woods, Roll and the Roll application, which is a terrible Google brand situation. I can never find the site ever, and I have
SEO terrible.
Yeah, help me. I'm sorry, I say it every time it comes up, but it's true. It's really hard to find, you guys. Figure it out, please. But I love this trend of thinking about digital, because I think it does two things for the industry. One, it increases the scope of accessibility. So a friend of mine, Spencer Campbell, and me have talked about this sort of concept of digital ecosystems as a principle for designing tabletop role-playing games. And I think about stuff like coordinating art direction that thinks about color blindness, right? Like when you're buying a print product, you can't really assist people who have that sort of accessible need.
Toggleable option, is there? Yeah.
Exactly. When you think about digital PDF living in an ecosystem on a website or something like that, they could flip a switch and then they'd be like, oh, wow, this is actually really amazing. It doesn't look like blurs of blues and greens that I can't see, right? I think about e-reader stuff and pub readers and Moby readers. I think about how it can take text to speech, right? Create an auditory experience. I think about audio book versions of tabletop games. And I know that there's a difference in accessibility too. Like by creating a digital only space, you create a atmosphere in which people who don't have money for electronics probably can't access your product, right? So it's sort of a give and take, but I think the pros overall may be out, because in the age of technology, I think almost speaking strictly to the vacuum of America, I think a lot of people already have like smartphone devices, maybe tablets, maybe computers. I would be hard pressed to find people that don't have some sort of electronic device that allows them to access an application at this point, at least in like an 80 percentile something. I'm making that number up, but I'm sure it's a statistic I could look up on the internet easily in this moment. As far as trends that maybe I don't like, just the traditional gamer thing. It's like your game is still, even in reference to this talk about the electronic future of games, your print game is still going to be there. Your book is not going to evaporate the second an application is made for it. So like, stop yelling at people.
Yeah.
In general,
Stop it.
Yeah.
Things that
Just
we
stop
don't like to
yelling at
see
people.
when you yell at people.
Yeah. Don't worry,
Yeah.
your Euro game about Venice trading in the 1800s is gonna be
Yeah.
there. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
there's going to
fine.
be 8 other versions.
Yeah,
as
there'll
well.
be
Don't worry
100
about
other versions of that type of game, so you don't need to worry about all this newfangled stuff.
And then a trend I'd like to speak into the ether is more about like settings, like modern settings. I think this is my personal taste, so I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but I think like the tavern adventure thing is kind of trite at this point.
Yeah,
in,
no, that's something
like
we've said a lot,
tabletop
to be
role playing
fair,
games.
yeah.
So I would there is another designer whose last name escapes me, or maybe I don't know it and I only know like the internet persona, but her name is Ava. She has helped create the game Errant, which is sort of like a love letter to OSR sort of thing. That's my basic understanding of it. But in one of her blog articles, she talks about what does hip hop fantasy look like, right? And so I would love more settings or conceptions for games in which we explore the modern landscape. Like we live in a modern 2020, 2021 era, and explore that city life stuff and explore sort of the customs of all the modern cultures, right? I think that it's cool to do period pieces, but I think there's a lot more room to explore when it comes to I've been watching Fantasy High by Dimension 20, very cool D&D actual play, and it sort of has like this modern feel to it. They also do one called Sleeping City where they play in New York, a magical New York City, and do D&D that way. And those are very fascinating to me because I find them relatable. Like, I think there's this thing with period pieces where if you bring it to the table and it has all this slang terminology from 80s, 60s, 1700s, whatever sort of the scope is, there's a bigger learning curve than if you're like, yeah, there are mobile devices, there's a hot dog stand down on the corner every Sunday, and like there's a farmer's market. Like you can track all those things, then layer the fantasy on top of them. So I would love to see more modern fantasy be explored in role-playing games.
It looks like that's Ava Islam, by the way, for the full name.
Thank you.
For anyone who's
Thank
interested
you.
in Errant. But yeah, next question here. So the second one for Jeremy, but then we'll get into some more general ones that we can all answer. And this one is from Pangalactic on Twitter, who asks, talk to us about the origins of Draw Your Dice. Where did it come from and what are your aims with it?
Oh, God. Okay. So
Like an interview, this is like a job interview question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, so Jeremy,
help
tell me
me.
what you're trying to achieve. Where do you see yourself in 5
Yeah.
years?
you know what? I'm going to flip the script. Wheels, what's your biggest weakness? I'm
My biggest weakness is cutting off my answers too early.
Aw.
I thought you were gonna say.
Is that real?
I thought you were gonna say something like my biggest weakness is just being too cool.
My biggest weakness is
Yeah, I was like, it suddenly got really
of a
real for me.
personality.
I was like, please bit me. Oh, God. Let's see. The origins of DYD, Draw Your Dice, come from me being at a loss at the end of 2020. So when the pandemic started, I just left a job as a wine manager over at a wine bar. And that was at the like literally December 31st, January 1st. And so I had a lot of money saved up and I was going to take like a 2-month vacation to like think about things and find a new job. And then the pandemic started to swell up in around March. And my resume says I can only work at restaurants, basically. And I did not want to do that during COVID. They weren't hiring, especially when lockdown happened in June for America. And basically, I have been jobless for a whole year. Shout out to my partner, Grace, who is such a support system and beautiful. And I love you if you're listening to this. And but she has been really pulling the financial weight for both of us. And I tried to find some remote jobs. Like I applied for like a key bank position for remote teller and thing. But ultimately, I don't like to work for people. That's what it boils down to. I don't like to be on someone else's time schedule, or at least not feel like I'm helping a team rather than being a worker bee. So November, December came around, and I kept putting this idea into the Brain Trust Discord, listen to the Brain Trust podcast. But I put out like, hey, if I find like there's not, I was trying to learn game design around September or October, and I couldn't find like a podcast that really taught like role-playing game concepts. They explored video games, they explored board games, but there was nothing really like that wasn't an actual play also. Like it just felt like it wasn't hitting the right mark for me. So I said, hey, you know, I would love to explore some other voices in the indie scene. What if I did a show where I interviewed people and create a vault for people like me who are just learning about game design and get those principles, philosophies, those trials by fire, and put them in a space. And everyone was game for it, and I started interviewing people. So that was sort of the origin, and the aim for it now has evolved into something that I really want to make this a new career for myself. I always want the knowledge to be free of access. I want anyone to be able to garner it and apply it to their own creations. But at some point I want to think about like, I am doing work here. I am using these networks and these connections to bring people knowledge, and figuring out how to monetize that is sort of my forward aim for the show. But the knowledge and the conversation will always come first for both myself and the listeners.
Mm.
Yeah, I think there is like a sort of evolving media landscape in tabletop, because like it's very much, you know, if you look at video games as a comparison, it's been around for so long that you can get most types of content out of video game stuff in a way that you just can't with tabletop. That's obviously something that Dicebreaker are filling a niche in as well. Like, we're probably the largest like journalistic board game site out there right now, or at least we're on the way to be, I think. So like there's loads of like niches that need to be filled, and if you're listening to this and you're thinking about those and you're thinking maybe I should do that as well, like, you know, that we need that kind of drive to create in the industry to give us new ways to experience tabletop and to think about tabletop.
Firstly, acknowledge us as being the titans of the industry that we are.
Yeah, first pay your tithes to us, and
then you do what you want.
And then slag us off behind our back.
You're operating on our turf.
Yeah.
Please. Respect.
All right.
We're like the... You know, like in an anime or something where there's the guy who's been around for a while, and he's like, yeah, I know what I'm... Like the haughty, like guys, I'm experienced. I'm the hot shot here. We're like that to everyone else. We're trying to, yeah.
Okay,
that's how I describe it.
Let's move on to another question. We've got a little bit of time for one or two. So these are general ones for the team. So this one comes from Oliver Layton. Meehan, do you want to read this one out?
Yeah, I can do that. MJ, as we call him.
Oh, Matt Jarvis says I cut this one down to just the question, but it was very lovely. So thank you for a long, lovely email, Oliver Layton.
Yes. Hi, Dicebreaker team and assorted pets. At the start of lockdown, I started playing Curse of Strahd. Spooks! While I love the setting, D&D 5e leaves a lot to be desired indeed, especially in a horror setting. So are there any settings or modules for tabletop role-playing games that you've fallen in love with, but have been disappointed with the rules game itself? Also, is there a better system you could think of for playing a setting like Curse of Strahd in? Sorry for the long question. Keep up the amazing content and have a lovely day. Oliver. Thank you, Oliver, for your question.
Yeah, I can see why you would be...
We played Curse of Strahd, didn't we?
Do
you remember what that was like?
We definitely didn't do it in a horror vein, though, did we, Meehan?
No, because I DM'd that one, and let's just say when I played fast and loose with the rules, oh boy, did I!
I'm gonna assume you haven't watched it, Jeremy. But imagine D&D Curse of Strahd, but like as a Muppet production. And that gives you a kind of vibe of the Let's Play that we did.
I immediately imagine like Muppets Treasure Island.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah,
Muppets Treasure
yeah.
Island,
I remember one of the comments
greatest
from the
Muppet film.
video was something like, "Is it true you can kill Strahd with just a steak?" And I was like, "Oh my sweet child."
No, it was. Is it true that you can kill Strahd with just a wooden sword covered in piss? That was the actual thing that happened.
Yeah, and I was like, in my game you can, yeah. That's that pretty much like sums up this person probably had similar problems with.
But yeah, so D&D 5e is not built for a lot of things. Like, it's built for dungeon crawls.
Yeah.
So if you're not into dungeon crawls, then it can be a little bit frustrating, because you might think we get to go to a spooky mansion and there's vampires and ghosts and all sorts of things, and then actually it just plays like, oh, okay, it's got like a spooky vibe, but actually we're just stabbing things just like we always are.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great horror RPGs out there. Not necessarily ones that would work with Strahd itself, but like you can definitely get similar vibes. It depends on the type of horror you're going for as well. My favorite horror RPG, which I talk about all the time, is 10 Candles, which is a incredible like tragic horror game. It's very much built for one shots, because like the gimmick is that your characters will die at the end, so like it gives you like a very much like a tool set to make your characters have like these really epic but quite sad sort of like final moments kind of thing. Whereas you can also do more sort of like I mean, there is a game called Monster of the Week, which is, you know, it's that kind of Monster of the Week vibe, which it could be like Scooby-Doo, or it could be more like Buffy. Like it depends on the kind of vibe that you take it with, but it's built for that kind of, here's the big antagonist of the week and we're going to try and take them down. Yeah. There's all sorts of different horror RPGs. I'm sure you've got some as well that you could recommend, you too.
Yeah, so in terms of system setting sort of disconnect, I really love the idea of Vampire the Masquerade. Like, I was obsessed with this game. Vampire has a lot of issues beyond the rules setting. You know, it unfortunately had people involved in it who were very bad. Luckily, it's now under control of Renegade, so hopefully they'll be able to do some things to make it more accessible and better in terms of representation, and get rid of some of that toxic stuff that's in it. Because the concept itself, I love. Like, I love the idea of these different clans of vampires lurking around in modern day LA or wherever you want to set it, and they all sort of like. Yeah, it's like wars against each other in the dark, in terms of humanity doesn't know that these people exist. It's just got a very like Dusk Till Dawn sort of style about it, where it's a bit trashy. It's quite 90s, but I think it's really cool. But the rules in terms, they're not the most accessible. They're quite crunchy, even with the newest edition. I'm hoping Renegade helps with that in terms of maybe simplifying that down even more. And in terms of other horror RPGs that I'd rather recommend, Dread is one of my favourite RPGs of all time.
Dread is great, yeah. I
love Dread so much. You can buy it online quite easily. You can just buy the PDF. And it's just a fantastic concept where you have a Jenga tower, and that controls the entire system of the game, where the players have to pull a certain number of blocks to perform certain actions. Obviously, the more difficult the action, the more blocks you pull. Like, it's that straightforward. But the whole experience is about building up tension and release. Like, it's a masterclass in pacing and why it's so good for horror games, because the best kind of horror is building your tension up and then releasing that at like the best moment. So play Dread. What about you, Jeremy?
I think you both said the games that I would recommend in terms of like a good horror alternative. Obviously, both 10 Candles and Dread. Maybe you could do Curse of Strahd in Dread, right? Because you would just do the role play of it.
Dread's pretty open.
Yeah. But the two biggest things that make, I think when people think horror initially, especially when they're trying to drive that using the vehicle of D&D, is that you can't you can't tell a player to be scared. You can't like create a jump scare through your words. All you can do is we talk about this in Wheels episode on DYD when we talk about 10 Candles, but the two biggest components are atmosphere and time. Time that something bad is going to happen. It's about the when. It's about how long until that happens. And then atmosphere is sort of setting the precedence for things that have the potential to scare a player, right? When you talk about safety tools and stuff like that, you learn about highlights that other people want to experience. Maybe my highlight is, I want to be trapped in a room full of darkness, right? That's scary to me, and I've set that precedent, so I'm going to be scared. I'm going to initiate that horror, right? But as far as like the disconnect from D&D, as long as it has hit points, you don't have to be scared of it. That's really what it boils down to, is because the game's built for you to take it down. Disconnective games, I mean, D&D for me, obviously it doesn't do a lot of things that it promises it can do, for sure. It is not obvious in that way, and I think there's also
collection off camera.
Yeah. Off camera, I'm looking at things. Sorry for the silence, everyone in the podcast realm. I feel like there's a tiny bit of disconnect for me from, what is it? I can't. Weave, in a way, with I don't know if anyone here has played Weave. It's like a self-made tarot card set. Use your phone.
We did play Weave.
Yeah,
I remember we did that.
I think I did
see.
Meehan. Yeah, I think I saw one of you on there because you. It was like a long time. It was like on their Discord that I saw it, because Erica Ishii was doing like the example videos and stuff, like the rules videos and things. And I think I saw someone in a anyways, point is that I think at least in the beginning, I haven't checked out Weave in a long time, but in the beginning, a lot of the settings didn't have clarified rules in them. It felt very beta in the best way, but also in a way that like I didn't understand how to play.
Yeah.
Like I could not. I knew how to make a character for sure. It totally had that down. But like any of the play sets, I'm like, how do I engage with this further? Are we just improving now at this point? How do I use my powers, et cetera, et cetera?
That's like my biggest issue with some RPGs that are very loose. Like there is an in between space of too chunky and too loose, and I think there are games that like, okay, how do I actually interact with this? Like, you're giving me a chance to get this character, what do I actually do in the game? And then it does result in like improv, which like I need more direction than that.
I think there are certain game sets like like D&D or like, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay or whatever, where if there is a thing that you want to do, there is a rule that you have to follow to do it, and like every single thing has been mapped out for you or whatever. Whereas there are games where it's just like the rulebook is basically just like just vibes, man.
Just
like
vibes,
just vibe it, man. It's fine. And like I think it very much depends on the kind of player that you are, based on like which like point on that spectrum you fit. But certainly like I think there are some games that are super. I don't want to say like arty, because it makes it sound like a sort of an insult, but it's not meant to be. Like there are games that are very sort of open ended and very free flowing, and like we talk about sort of like lyric games where like they're not they're designed to be read as much as they are to be played. They're almost like a small like thought piece as much as they are a game. But I think there are some games that read like that, but then position themselves as if they're like more like a sort of gamey game, and I don't want to sort of say that anything that doesn't have explicit rules is not a game, because that's not really how it works. But there are certainly ones where I think you can get frustrated if you play it and you're like, I don't get this, and it can be difficult sometimes, especially if you're not experienced with different role playing games.
For sure.
Okay, right. We will move on to the next question. Jeremy, would you like to read out a question? I don't know if you're in the Google Doc with us.
Sure. Yeah, I have the doc.
Chris Bizet. Or Bizet.
There we are. Indie RPG designer of The Wretched, A Dragon Game, and Dice Souls at Pangalactic. What's the most exciting thing you've seen coming out of indie spaces? Meehan?
Yeah, for me, it's probably. I think it's definitely in the role playing sort of sector of things. Like indie games, I think indie board games, some of the more exciting ones are maybe ones that use like app integration, and they're often popping up on Kickstarter. But I think a lot of the indie board game designers often do quite straightforward things that I think because they're more affordable to kind of do.
More limited, yeah. That's the problem,
So like kudos to them, that's great. But that doesn't really do a heck of a lot for me. Whereas I think the indie RPG, like the Zine Quest popped up so many fun and interesting RPG concepts. For me, first time, because I'd never really explored that space before. But like I found myself like buying several role-playing games. Including several that I'm excited about because they're just playing with. For me, the thing that's exciting is the concept of the game. So, like, not necessarily, this is an entirely new mechanic you've seen. Don't get me wrong, I love when RPGs play with that, like Dread, like this Discord has ghosts, or Sleep Away, as you've mentioned before. Wills, I still need to play those two. I love it when RPGs play with like the physical medium, what you can do as players, but also like fun concepts that, like you've said before, Jeremy, like settings that you've not seen before. So one that I backed was called I think it's Your God is Dead or something.
Yes.
And as soon as I read the concept, I'm like, I'm on board, because it's very focused, which I actually quite like. And it's you are like head of a cult and your god just died overnight, which I think is hilarious. And no one else knows, only you do. So you're like, let's just keep up the pretense that the god is still alive and telling us what to do. And so the entire game, it's obviously meant to be a one-shot, the entire game is this, you are telling your followers what God has told you to do, but you're seeing how far you can kind of push this stupid, like, situation. And it just, to me, it just results in, to me, it feels like it's shenanigans. And I think that's great. So that's the most exciting thing I'm seeing in indie spaces right now, making focused, really fun, interesting ideas with role-playing games.
I fully agree. I think I am slightly running out of time because I've got to jump into another thing, so I'll have to do a very, very concise answer. But I just absolutely, I think I'm always way more excited about indie designers than I am about anything else. Like when I see Simon have released a big new box full of miniatures, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. But then I see this person is making a weird little game that fits on a card, and I'm like, ooh, like I'm way more excited about that stuff. So I will shout out. There is
Mending,
sorry,
is it Mending that you're thinking about, or is it?
Well, no, yeah. So there was a whole jam, and it was called is it Pleasure Cards? I think the Pleasure Cards. Jam, which is basically like, it was a whole game jam. For those who don't know, a game jam is like a sort of like, you try and make a game in a very, very short period of time and just put it out. It's like it's an excuse to game design, but it's essentially like a jam that asked everyone to make a game that fits on a business card, and it is such a cool idea and so many like strange little designs that came out. I think was it Gian that made Mending? Is that, am I right in thinking that Gian Xing?
I think you might be confused with the, oh my god, there was the game about journaling. There was the you're thinking of, I think you're thinking of the game about journaling, which is like collecting a book of memories about a professor or something. It's been a long time.
Gian Shim is the designer who made the cryptozoology game.
Yes.
But then I thought they had also made a pleasure card game. I
don't know, mate.
This is the other problem with indie stuff, is that like there's 400 different designers in your head at all one time, and you can never remember their names, and
many.
some of them just go by their Twitter handles, and you're just like, oh god. So I apologize if I ever say your game and I've forgotten your name, but I think possibly it was them who had made something. But I remember seeing that one on Twitter where you basically you fold the little business card in half and it becomes a tent. And you're making like a little campsite out of household items, and it's really, really cute and really sweet. But yeah, as I said, we're running out of time.
What about you, Jeremy? Give us an idea. What do you see?
The quick one is I am loving like what I'm seeing out of the indie space is probably like a general thing, and that's goals. Like one of the quips that I have with D&D is that it's kind of a goalless game. The goal has to be derived by the GM or the party at hand or whatever like that. But things like I know it's not super indie currently because it's sort of attached to Evil Hat and everything, but Band of Blades having like the goal to get to Skydagger Keep. There is 0.6e by Max V, who they've created a game where like you have to get to the castle in time and has a present like map that you go through. So I like Meehan was talking about goal focused games, like very focused down. You're doing this thing and there is a defined end to this. And I think it sets really good expectations for players because they know what they're getting into, right? If we're playing Band of Blades, we know that at minimum we're playing 12 sessions to get to Skydagger. There's no questions about that. If we're playing Dread, we're playing until everyone dies. Like that's kind of, unless you make new characters and figure it out yourself. 10 candles, when all 10 candles are out, game's over. That's it. There's no other talking about it. And I like that because one of the biggest adult troubles for playing tabletop games, unless you're all is poor. Scheduling. It's so hard to get people together for not only like 4 hours one time, but 4 hours 12 times. Whew.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. So it
is good to see the evolution of RPGs from these massive sprawling things with the huge universes to hey, let's just this fun stupid scenario you could play in like an hour or so. I do like that. Get away.
Gotta fly again.
Yeah, sorry, I live in Flyland, Jeremy.
Yeah,
I'm very sorry, everyone. I'm gonna have to cut the podcast short. Although we've been recording for about an hour.
Yeah,
let's
do
about what you'd expect from an episode.
We'll
but let's
very quick outro.
Very quick outro. A big shout out to Jeremy for joining us. Jeremy, please do tell us where we can find more of you. You have 30 seconds. Go sell yourself for 30 seconds.
Jeremy Gage at Jeremy Gage 5 over on Twitter, and you can listen to the Draw Your Dice podcast on your favorite podcast distributor, and you can also check me out on the call-in show at twitch.tv/AdamEbell.
Yeah.
Bam!
Excellent.
Look, I didn't even need 30 seconds.
Go and do that.
Meehan, go.
Go and look at their website, dicebreaker.com. You can see new articles. It's really good. There's news as well from me and Chase. Thank you very much.
And then you can also find Dicebreaker video content on youtube.com/Dicebreaker, where myself and Lodies and possibly a new hire coming very, very soon will be making all sorts of content. What a bomb drop. Oh my God. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Thank you very much to Jeremy for being our very special guest. We'll see you on the next one and have a lovely day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.